I told you even before we started recording the interview that I just love the drum texture. The drums sound very visceral and real. I don't know. There's something like almost like I don't know what the word is. They have like,
no, that's nice to hear.
They have a texture, like you could feel them.
Yeah.
And vocal sounds great. I love the harp and the I guess like it's like a bass synth happening down there underneath
yeah,
everything.
it was the Juno actually, which I've gotten really in. We've got a Moog Model D as well at Strongroom, which I do really love. But I keep on trying to find particular sounds in the Moog, and then realizing that that actually the sound I want is on the Juno, and just using the Juno for bass instead.
Sounds great.
So feeling that a lot. But the drums, it's nice to hear that about the drums, because I struggled with them a bit because I used the Coles 4038s as my drum overheads, which I do generally quite a lot, especially on anything like a little bit sort of soul-y or jazzy. And maybe I'd use like pencils or condensers more on like pop or rock or anything.
Mm-hmm.
But so I used the 4038s on this, and then afterwards I was like starting to mix it, and it's the drummer Momoko, it's just like a very like dark sounding drummer, and a lot of like very dark sounding cymbals, and mallets used on quite a lot of things.
Yeah,
and
I heard that dark
that
mallet cymbal crash there at the beginning in the opening.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
and it was like, it actually felt like a bit of a pain to mix at the start, because I was like, oh, this isn't how, I'm not getting any of the brightness out of the cymbals, and if I brought the brightness out of the cymbals, then the tom hits would come up and it would feel way too in your face. And I was just like, oh no, I made the wrong decision, and I should have used like brighter microphones for the overheads. And actually now, the more I've been mixing it, the more I absolutely love it, and I think it kind of suits the vibe of the song so much more. So it was kind of a nice accidental mistake that I've gone in full circle of. And yeah,
you've embraced the darkness.
Happier with my choice now. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, how did you treat those drums? Like, I love those tom hits. Like, it was such a such a vibe.
I thought, probably a lot of saturation again. And get the session up, but it's I think probably a lot of saturation. I'm very into like making the drums quite spacious at the moment, so like panning something really quite perfectly, and like blending in any of the spot mics to a very, very exact amount with the overheads to get the tone that I want. And generally I'll make any of the spot mics a lot richer, and then just have the overheads as like the floaty top bits of it.
Just a bunch of saturation.
I generally am compressing, as I said earlier, I'm not super into compression, but I'll generally compress the drum bus mix, usually using 33609, the UAD one, which I do love a lot. So that's definitely on this mix, and it just makes it like bouncy.
I don't have any UAD plugins, so I'm looking for a 33609 that is not UAD, and I don't know if there are any. I think there was an IK multimedia one. I need to look it up.
Nice.
But I've heard good things. I've heard great things about it. Also, it's like a stereo bus compressor. I've heard great things about it. Yeah. And in terms of like the harp, what's going on there?
The harp. So this one I love this song. So generally the album has been done where she brings in the musicians and workshops the ideas, like I was saying earlier. But she'll have like some sort of skeleton of the track that she wants. But with this particular song, we had Maria, the harpist, in for the day. I think for her, I just had two mismatched large diaphragm condensers on the lower and the upper strings, and then one room mic, I think. And that was separated off from the drums. And then we had the Juno in the control room with me, and Andrea on like an SM7 in the control room with me. And she was like, I just want to do a jam. Like, while we're all here, like good group of musicians, I just want everyone to just play and see what happens. So literally they just did about a 10-minute jam, and that entire song was taken from it. And she just had a poem, and she just sang in the room with us, and just, it was just a complete jam. And I just think that's magic, because it's probably my favourite track on the album, and that it wasn't even written before just kind of blows my mind a little bit. But I think we just had a really, really nice space that day. Like, everyone was quite relaxed. Everyone was in the right mood. Everyone had like got what they needed, and were feeling really, really creative together.
That's so cool.
And yeah, just hit record and they went. And the funny thing is as well with that is we recorded it on the SM7, and I shouldn't have said this really, but I said to her before, I was like, this is just on the SM7. This isn't on like your proper vocal mic, so don't get too attached to whatever performance you do. which was probably a bit like cutting her off in the first place. I've learned from this anyway. I'm not going to do it again. But yeah, I said this to her and she was like, yeah, no, fine. This is just a scratch thing. Like, we'll go over it. We'll like fine tune everything in the end. So I was like, okay. And then did this absolutely magic take. We were like, oh, wow. And then the week afterwards, they came in and she tried to re-sing the vocals on like a C800 super fancy mic and with like a really nice vocal chain and everything. And it was just like, she did some nice takes, but there was something so magic that was caught in the original jam together that we were just like, no, it has to be the take on the SM7.
That's
but
awesome.
She's got a really lovely, like airy voice anyway, so it actually suits most microphones she gets put on, but it suits the SM7 quite well. And then for any of like the ad-libby bits, we used takes from the C800. So some of the so it was all done as like one long jam, but then some of the extra production-y bits, I just took snippets from her take on the C800 and then like used either like the H3000 or like Little Altar Boy and just like pitched down a lot of her vocals and like did weird, trippy, psychedelic panning things and pitch bend things.
Yeah, well, it turned out awesome, and I would say that I'm actually really quite surprised that it was just a jam because it sounds very orchestrated, especially the musical instrument parts. Maybe the vocal sounds like it could have been like a riff, but the band sounds very like, I don't know. It sounds like the whole thing was programmed or just like, very much meticulously made, even though it's a jam. So that's like
that's what I love
really,
about it as well. I'm still in awe as it's slightly. I'm like, oh wow, it's such a beautiful tune.
Cool. So you programmed as Juno, you got it in that spot. Like, no, it was just jammed on the on the spot, day of. That's awesome. That's so fun. And yeah, you got to have I guess you got to respect the scratch vocal. I think it's important to know when to keep that, And I feel like, because like obviously performance over sound for sure, and I feel like this day and age, it's hard to not be perfectionist about performance. And sometimes, you can go past performance by trying to over perfect it. And I think knowing when to stop is, an important thing, so congrats.
Thanks, yeah, no, it was a struggle though. I was really like, no, I'm sure we can make the C800 work. Just sing it the same. And it just, yeah. I think it took me a minute to be like, no, the magic of the first one is how it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
But it's been fun doing this album because we've done a lot of scratch vocals and a lot of different microphones. There's another song called White Noise and she did a scratch vocal on like, I've got the Aston Spirit at home. And she just did it like holding it, I think. So not even on a stand. She's just like holding it in my bedroom and sang it. And it was a really, really good scratch vocal take. And we took a long time trying to make that work. And then I think one day we were just like, no, let's just redo it. And I'm glad that we redid it that time. It sounds a lot better.
So it depends, I guess, right? Everything is source dependent, right? Just like how perfectionistic you want to be is also genre dependent. Like how pop is this? How meticulous do you want to get about the inflection of every word? And, like sometimes it's just about a vibe and a performance. And sometimes it's about getting into the weeds and over, like underthinking it or overthinking it. It just kind of... it's that's fun, to know when to not do it or to do it is just part of the journey of just, I don't know, doing it, I guess. Yeah, Phi, so it sounds awesome and you're doing great work. I loved everything I heard also that you on your website and stuff. Yeah, so as we kind of wrap up our conversation, I ask this question at the end of every episode. So I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Just looking back on your journey. Was there something you maybe did or didn't do that you want to tell your earlier self and be like, yo, Phi, keep at that. That's the sauce. That's going to get you where you want to go. Or maybe the other way around, Phi, don't do that. It's holding you back. What would be that one piece of advice you want to tell your earlier self?
I think just to not rely too much on like what everybody else does and watching videos and trying to do it the way that everybody else does it, but just to keep on experimenting yourself. Because your ears are so unique and you like the music that you like and no one else has experienced your musical journey. So I think just to keep on at your own experience, I guess.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
That's my answer to the question.
Oh, nice.
And I know this.
Cool.
I know this because I was on my buddy Travis's podcast, Progressions, and so he flipped it around on me and asked me my question. And I answered it.
Ah, nice.
Answer the exact same way. You got to double down on yourself, because that's what makes you unique.
Definitely.
That's your unique angle into the industry and doing work. So
exactly.
I love your answer.
And I think as much as I've learned loads from uni and loads from all of my peers and all of the engineers and producers I've worked with, I think I've learned just as much just knuckling down myself and spending an hour automating a violin.
Yeah, love it. Sometimes you got to do the hard work. There's no way around it. And if that's what works for you, that's your thing, then just keep doing it. Awesome. Well, Phi, this has been so fun. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this and sharing your wisdom and doubling down on yourself.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Secret Sonics. I hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as I did. If you've been digging the show, it would be awesome if you could share this episode or your favorite episode with a friend or two, and or leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your podcatcher of choice. That's it for now. Have a great week. Take care and dig in. See you soon. Bye-bye.